So we get questions all the time on when patients come in, do I need an MRI? Is that going to help you? Do I need to get my MRI from my doctor? And we're going to be talking a little bit about that because a lot of times the MRI is very expensive and it does not give us a lot of information on helping solve your problem. And we'll go into when I would have an MRI and what you can ask your doctor to determine if you really want to have an MRI or not. So my name is Stephanie, and I help clients all the time avoid surgery, injections, and medications. That's what we specialize in. We see people that have tried a lot of providers without getting resolution until they come to our office. So if you like what you hear, make sure you definitely subscribe to our channel. So when patients ask me if they need to bring in their MRI, they can bring it in, but it really doesn't help me a lot. And a lot of times for patients that get MRIs, it's an expensive selfie. And here's what I mean by that. So when we hurt, usually we're moving into positions. We bend the wrong way. We're in a position that makes our body hurt. But when we are doing an MRI, we're actually still lying down. And a lot of times we don't hurt when we're still. Sometimes even when lying down, we don't even hurt with our back. And sometimes we do, but that's how we're taking the picture. So in that position is not always the best position to really give us information, education on what are going to be the best practices for moving forward. The other thing is when you look at MRIs, they are not reliable. And this is what I mean by that. So if you took 100 people, there's so much research out there. When I was having to go through a lot of different programs, as I've continued my learning, just reading some of the research, I was just shocked. I was like, how are we still using these as much as we're using these when there's this much research out there on this? And this is where the doctors are really relying on this heavily because they only have like 10 minutes with you. So let's go do an MRI that's going to show us what's going on. And it's not the case. So if you take 100 people that have no pain whatsoever, 60 to 80% of them are going to show something that is going on, like 60 to 80%. They're pain free. They might have degenerative disc disease. They may have degenerative joint disease. They may have, a herniated disc. These are some of the things that they see, but yet these people have no pain whatsoever. So what happens is as we get older, that number increases. So if you take someone that's like 17, they're not going to show anything on an MRI. It's going to be clear. But when you get someone that's like maybe 60, they're going to show a lot of things on the MRI. But yet, if they have no pain, is that really where the pain's coming from? So when you have pain and then you go and you go and do an MRI, it's going to show something. But is that really what's going on? Or is that something that's there? And here's how I describe it. So as we get older, we start aging. Like as we get older, we get more wrinkles on our face. Not that we want them, but they don't harm us. They're not something that is going to damage anything. So when we do MRIs, we get wrinkles on our bones and our joints and our structures, and you get more wear and tear. And that's just what happens as we get older. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that is where your pain is coming from. And so when people ask me if they need to get an MRI, I'm like, no, save your money. That's like $1,500 that you could use towards something that can actually really help give you some information, education. And so these are some of the things that we share with our clients all the time. Now, let's say you go to a doctor and they want to do an MRI. So you can ask them some questions to determine, like, is this something that I really want to do, or is it something that I don't want to do? And some of the questions that I like to ask is, first of all, if there's any kind of red flags, things don't add up, then definitely this is when you're going to want to get an MRI. If you are going to have surgery, the doctor is going to change the way he thinks about what he's going to do with your next steps as far as your treatment plan, then yes, you're going to want to have an MRI. So for instance, someone tore their ACL, they're not really sure, and they think they may have surgery, but they may not have surgery. Doing an MRI to determine if they actually have a tear is something that's going to be good because it's going to show that. and that's going to determine whether you're going to have surgery or not. So it's going to change the outcome of what you're going to do. So you can go and ask the doctor, I don't want to have surgery, if that's what you're leaning towards. I don't want to have surgery. And you're already telling me these are some of the things that I want to do. How is this MRI going to change what our treatment plan is? Because it's not going to change anything, and they're just going to say, we want to just see what's going on, I wouldn't do it. $1,500 to see what's going on doesn't do you a lot of good. We can figure a lot of these stuffs out with actually moving you and retesting you to kind of figure out what's going on and where the source of your problem is coming from. Because one of the biggest things I always share with my clients is that where the side of the pain is often not where the source of the problem is coming from. And so you do an image on the back, but there's something else that's going on in the hip. It's not going to show that, and you're not going to know that we need to go and address the hip. Or there might be something showing on the lower thoracic spine. It's not going to show that because you're only looking at the back. So you got to look at the whole body, and you got to sit down and have questions and start figuring out some things. And that takes longer than a 10-minute conversation the doctor's going to have with you. So if you're really not sure what you did, it's not from a fall. Another thing, fall, definitely get some x-rays. If you think there's a possible fracture, those are other things that, there's reasons why we have these things, but they're overused. So if you're coming in and you're to a doctor and you're not really sure what's going on, you're not sure what you did, you just started hurting one day and it's just getting worse, or it's been going on for a while, you might want to skip the MRI because you can put that money towards something else, like physical therapy, someone that understands the body, to come in and actually get that evaluation and understanding of where things are coming from is going to be a way better use of your time and money. So one other thing that when I look at people that, yes, you need to get an MRI. And we've seen this before. I mean, I've sent people, it's just like, yep, I think you need to go see the doctor. I think we need to do some further testing because things aren't adding up. We actually had a patient about 6 months ago, and she came in and she was a patient that we've seen before. And she was having back pain, and we were working with her, and just things weren't adding up, and her symptoms were getting worse down the leg. And I was like, we've looked at everything. This is not normal. And so she went and went to the doctor, and they got an MRI, and they found that there was a cyst that was actually on her spine and pressing into her nerves. And I was like, that's so interesting. Where do you think you got that cyst? She goes, it's crazy, but I was thinking back. I fell about 2 months ago on the stairs and hit that spot, kind of where that cyst is. That's how a cyst can form. You can have a fall from that, but we didn't, she didn't put two and two together until the doctor was like, what did you do? And she was trying to figure some of these things out. She needed to have surgery. There are times when people need to have surgery, but we can help guide you through that process and really determine if that's something that you really need to do, or if that's something that you don't really need to do. And the reason why it works so well with us is we really can hone in on the red flags to figure out if there is something that's not operating right. But we also have more time with you. Like, spending an hour to do an evaluation is way better than spending 10 minutes talking with a doctor. Because we can sit down and have those conversations. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to send you to a doctor if we're like, these don't sound good, or after our evaluation, we're finding some other things. We'll definitely refer you out. That's what we did with our last patient. But going in and having that thorough, sit down, talk, thorough evaluation is going to be way better than an MRI. Now, the only other times that I, again, send people to an MRI is if there's some red flags that we're noticing. We definitely want to do an MRI. If you've been in a car accident and you have symptoms down your leg, I want to do an MRI. I just want to make sure that there's nothing else that's going on with the spine that we can't see. Like, were there fractures? Did you that we can't see that, we need to allow those things to heal. There's things that can happen that we need to make sure if there was an accident or things like that. That's when it's definitely useful to have something like that. But if you aren't sure what you did and you're just having pain one day, and those are cases that I'd hold off on spending money with an MRI and definitely get to someone that can actually help with some of your symptoms and figuring out where it's actually coming from, and give you a game plan as to what to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this information, and just want to remind you, make sure you subscribe. We also have other resources for you. If you go into the description, you'll see a ton of resources from back pain ebooks that we have for you to just start navigating and understanding what you can actually start doing. We have a back pain course that we've created as well that's really going to help take you through the whole process and get you some relief now. They're like my top 3 exercises that we give out, and they don't take long to do at all, but you'll go through and understand like why you need to do it and which ones you might need to do based on the information that we've given you. So we have that as well, and as well as a ton of other resources. I have my book that's out too. If you want to purchase that, there's some awesome resources in there on the back, the hip, the thoracic spine, which all can create that back pain, with a lot of other free resources as well. So make sure you head down to the description so that you can get some of those and continue your learning.